So in this video, I'll explain how I converted my point cloud into a mesh surface. So from before, we saw how we stitched together all the points and created all the scans. So now what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a single text file that will compile all the data. So what I use is I use the concatenate function, cat function, and where I just place each one X, Y, and Z to create their own single arrays. And then what I did is then I moved down and I put them all together. And then once I did that, I then wanted to check if it actually would be produced, if I could get that figure. And then here I used DLM write instead of fprintf because I found to have better, it was more easier to use it this way. And also, so when you imported the data then into MeshLab, I would have to, all the data points were separated by commas rather than spaces. So then in MeshLab, I then could create a mesh. And so once I had all the points in, which are represented by the yellow dots here, I could create normal points to all of these, or normal surfaces, the normals to all of these points. And once I've done that, I can then create a surface, and I wanted all the normals to be as aligned with each other as much as possible. And then I could create the mesh surface, where here is the best one I got. We hide the normals, we can see a little bit better. And so it's some things to point out are that it was clear that the image was able to, that the mesh was really able to pick out the depth of the object. But as we saw with when we created the point cloud, it could create the difference because it could measure the start of the bench and the back of the bench, but anything in between is a little more difficult to capture. So that's why there's these divots here, because for my best guess and interpretation of the software is that it's trying to fill in the gaps, and this is the best way it can do that. Another cool thing is it was able to pick out the arches of the handles of the bench, and it wasn't able to pick out the pattern in the bench as well. And so this is the best representation I can get by converting the point cloud into a mesh surface using MeshLab. And that's it. Thanks.